Well, today we're in Romans chapter 3, verse 12. Just one verse today as we're going through this final section of the second part of Romans. The first part was the introduction, and then Paul, starting in verse 18, started making the case that world is populated by sinners, essentially, that Jews and Greeks, both, all people are under condemnation of God. That's the section we're in. That's the section we're closing in on the end here before we get to the good news of salvation through Jesus Christ. But Paul's showing us an important pattern here that before we can really appreciate the good news of our salvation, we need to understand the bad news of our condemnation. And that's a good thing to keep in mind when witnessing to people as well. Our task is to know more than just get them to make a sinner's prayer. What we want to do is share the truth of the gospel. And the truth of the gospel is bitter, and it's also sweet. And we're looking at the bitter part now. We look at verse 12. Let me switch over my screen here so you can see the verse 12. Paul has been making the case here. Let me back up. Since verse 9, that all people, Jews and Greeks, and from Paul's perspective, that means the whole world. It's his way of saying that everyone, all you have are Jews and Greeks, everyone is condemned before God. There is no one righteous, no one who understands, no one who seeks God out. Which brings us to verse 12. He says, they have all turned aside. Together they have become corrupt. There is no one who does good. There is not even one. That word translated there, corrupt, can also be translated depraved. And I've been talking about this doctrine of total depravity, that every aspect of our being has been touched by sin and makes us like kryptonite when it comes to God, right? We're repellent to him. That nothing is acceptable in us. Through and through, we have been touched by sin. All have turned aside. Turned aside from what? Turned our backs on what? Turned aside from the truth of God, the truth of the God of the Bible. Back in chapter 1, he talked about how there's a natural revelation, revelation in nature of what God has created, that alerts us to his being, but we suppress that. And as a result, that's the turning aside that Paul is talking about here. We don't understand it. We misunderstand it. We think God is made in our image. We think God is just like us. And that's when we do that, we turn aside from him. And together, all of us, the whole world, in other words, has become depraved or corrupt. This is a moral situation that Paul's talking about, that our actions are corrupt, our motives are corrupt, our thinking is corrupt. It's a state of corruption that we've fallen into. It's going to ultimately be manifested in the corruption of our bodies, that the disintegration of our bodies in the grave are going to be witness to the fact that we are sinners and we are corrupt. Paul says succinctly, again, quoting the Old Testament, he is basing his whole argument on the Old Testament, that there is no one who does good. And he emphasizes it. There is not even one. No one who does good. Not even one. In fact, what he's saying here is there's no one who's acceptable to God. There's not even one. What a sobering thought. Think of that next time you are in the world, go to a grocery store, driving down the street, perhaps even in church, that there is no one good who does good, not even one. That the only way that anybody makes it into heaven is by God's grace. We'll see that grace expanded on when we get to verse 21 of this chapter. But right now, Paul wants us to take our time, reflect on the fact of our fallenness, reflect on the fact of our absolute corruption, that it's only by God's intervention in our life that anyone is saved. If God's justice were worked out, if God was a God who did not offer salvation, then by his own standard of judgment, you and I would be headed for the fires of hell that are not quenchable and would last forever, and we'd be suffering forever. But thank God he has intervened in our lives. If you don't consider yourself a believer right now and you're watching these and you're curious about it, I'd encourage you to hang on through the bad news, because good news is coming. What Jesus has done for us according to the will of his Father and has been implemented in us by the Holy Spirit is a breathtaking situation that Paul is going to explain to us beginning in verse 21, which in my view is kind of the center of the Bible. So we'll be getting there soon. God bless you, brothers and sisters. Meditate on these truths.